Episode 8, they're playing country music. April 28th, 2023, 10:41 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, let's look at today's question. What is woke culture, and is it based in psychology? That's a divisive question, isn't it? I suppose for a long time in the past, being woke was simply a synonym for awake, and it was used in the African-American vernacular. Over the years, though, the term staying woke became a watchword in parts of the African-American culture for those who questioned the levels of justice in the American socio-political landscape, I suppose. And over the past decade, the term was widely popularized as a call to action that went hand in hand with participation in the Black Lives Movement, didn't it? And then a new definition emerged. And even actually the Merriam-Webster dictionary has a definition of woke as being aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. Now, wokeness in itself entails the prioritization of certain issues relating to racial and ethnic equality, as well as issues facing the LGBTI community. And it's characterized by a distinct alertness to racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination. And among those on the political right, however, the word has become an insult, hasn't it? To those who are perceived to be radicals following a form of political correctness gone awry. Woke culture describes, I suppose, the manifestation of wokeness in the public domain. It's the collective action of people united through their wokeness, or through being awake, through their realization. And the clearest manifestation of woke culture is people gathering, either in person or online, for the purpose of protesting oppression or unfair discrimination. You know, it's a culture that consciously positions itself in direct opposition towards injustice and exploitation, and dedicates itself to structurally dismantling all forms of that. Now, psychologically speaking, woke culture, I suppose, is the public manifestation of that very instinctive human urge for identity through belonging. And through belonging, to associating with a group, which often manifests in the desire to advance the interests of your own group over threats from outsiders. And then this urge then often translates into activism, which finds the necessary justification in identifying injustices committed against the group that you belong to or that you associate with. And I suppose participating in this kind of activism for the sake of your own group also helps you gain an increased sense of belonging within that group. And so woke culture is ultimately, psychologically speaking, a collective reaction by a group to what is perceived or identified as threats. And, it's a reaction psychologically rooted in our instinctive human drive to survive by overcoming, what we perceive to be enemies and obstacles and injustices. I mean, the word woke has become so divisive, hasn't it? When it started really as a way to be more aware of injustice, but it has started to be used as an insult, and I think this is a shame, really, because it started with all of the right ideals, and that's a difficult question to answer. But anyway, that's the origins of wokeness, and I suppose the psychological reasoning behind it.
There's a fragrance that's here today, and they call it Charlie. A different fragrance that thinks your way, yeah, they call it Charlie. Kinda young, kinda now, Charlie. Kinda free, kinda wild. Kinda free, kinda wild. Kinda free, kinda wild. Charlie, kinda fragrance that's gonna stay, and it's here now. Charlie.
Revlon, a most original fragrance.
Today on Something Came from Baltimore, we have another episode of Kind of Free, Kind of Wow conversation with Laurie Greene. Laurie Greene is an assistant professor of anthropology at Stockton University in New Jersey, where she has taught since 1986. She is the founder and chair of the LGBTQ Youth Safe Space Initiative at Stockton University and an advocate for local LGBTQ community, and is the author of Drag Queens and Beauty Queens, Contesting Femininity in the World's Playground. You can binge. It's not too late. We have 6 more episodes to go. Otherwise, we'll drop them when Something Came from Baltimore in a timely fashion. The background music is D-Light's amazing 1990 album, World Click. The songs that you hear are from Bobby Short. Oh, and Something Came from Baltimore is a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast. And it's not normally about Baltimore. In fact, today, it definitely is not. Now, let's get into the conversation. Yeah. Well, the bottom line was that Hilton at the time said, no way, this would never work, because we want our gambling crowd not to be offended in any way. And to have a gay event, would be like outrageous. And I said, well, we don't want, the fear is that we would have like a bear event there, and then they would not feel comfortable in the casino. People wouldn't look at them in a welcoming way. So it was a big concern, and it never happened. And I went down to all the casinos that would talk to me. Not all of them would. It was just a big bomb. But
well, I think it was a great idea. And I think now, just a few years later, I think it would have been received differently. I really do. I think there's more. They see now the money. I mean, as venal as that sounds, and not for the right reasons. They see the money that's potentially in gay tourism.
Sure. But that's what the reason why they're even interested in it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
So it loops it back into the idea of like the community. Like the community can smell the fact that you don't really care about the community like that live there, but you do want to make money off of the community. And that's the part that piece that's missing. And I've identified that a long time ago. I said the reason why, our NAC was not successful was that you just didn't make the local people feel like a part of it or involved. And, it festers. I mean, basically you want every local person is your cheerleader. Every local person is the one that's going to move the ball forward. And if they're not feeling appreciated, it's just not going to go anywhere.
I think it's taken them a long time to realize that, I think in the beginning, the casino industry was doing so well, they didn't think they needed anybody.
That's true.
And I think that now that there's a different equation, I think they're much more apt to, consider things like this. I really think that they'd be more open to something like that now. You should suggest it again.
Yeah. I trust me, I love that area. And you're talking about Baltimore. I love Baltimore also, in a different way, but they're very similar. They are very similar in their struggles. The violence and what happens, I always say is that there's no, like in Atlantic City, there's no affluence. Everyone's kind of there. If you are there, you are, you're in it with everyone else. no matter if you make more money or less, but we're all in it together. And that's kind of how, like, I always look at Baltimore or Detroit or these other struggling cities. They're, we're all in this thing, and we're all gonna survive it. So I think people are more real. If you were in LA or something where you're in a more an affluent area, you just wouldn't have the same kind of conversations that you have with people who are just like, we're all trying to, survive this thing. It's
Yeah,
different.
excuse my language, but I like to say that here we have this "we're all in this shithole together" attitude.
Exactly.
It's like a shithole, but it's our shithole.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like everybody isn't aware of it. There's
Yeah.
nobody walking around with the delusion that this is a great city with, that's exceeding its expectations. Everybody's sort of like, every time something happens to show us we're going nowhere when we thought we were going somewhere, we all sort of do this collective "I knew it" sigh.
Yeah.
But again, on the other hand, it breeds a sort of camaraderie that I think you don't have. And I agree, places like Detroit, places like Baltimore, we're all the same, right? In some ways, places like Newark as well, although Newark is a much bigger city than Atlantic City is. It has the same vibe. Maybe Camden's a good example, comparison to Atlantic City. And, but it's, you still can love it here too. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
You can despise what's going on and you can still love it, because to me, this place has so much potential. It's just a matter of someone having the vision to see how that potential can be tapped. We have, like I said, a beautiful beach. I mean, no matter what happens here, we still have a beach, right? It's still a resort town. We have this world famous, wonderful boardwalk, and it's a gem. Every day when I walk down it or ride my bike down it, I'm like, this is freaking beautiful.
Yeah. No,
I live in paradise. And, we have a tradition of being, America's oldest playground, and that history is something that we don't take advantage of building on the history of this place. And I know when I watch, I just recently watched Boardwalk Empire. I hadn't watched it, right? I watched The Wire, the whole thing, before I watched Boardwalk Empire, just as an example. And I don't live in Baltimore, right? Never have. But it was funny when I was watching it and they were portraying like the Nookie, Thompson era or Johnson era, right? Because they changed his name, of Atlantic City, when you've got prohibition and all this corruption. And I started thinking, this is so tame compared to what Atlantic City politics is now. But there must be something we can do to play on this history, because people seem to be enamored with it. Why they haven't taken advantage of Boardwalk Empire, the success of that series, to somehow promote tourism here, I have no idea. You think they'd be having Boardwalk Empire tours, walking tours, and there'd be a Boardwalk Empire museum, and there'd be but for some reason in this place, it doesn't happen. The people who have the wherewithal don't come together to make it happen.
Like, I know that there's a large percentage of money that goes back into the city. So you're like, oh, that's amazing. That's why the casinos are there. They're pumping money into the city. But I've never been to a major like downtown area where there's not a Starbucks, or there's not outside seating, or there's not like places that people feel that they can walk up and down and shop a little. I mean, they do have the outlets, but I mean, that's,
well, and they're not doing well at all.
yeah, there was a time that they had buses coming all over the place, and they, on purpose, in my opinion, had to run downtown so people could look out their windows when they're coming in and out of the city and be scared out of their mind of what they were seeing. There's zombie action. There's a lot of zombie walking people in Atlantic City. It's very visible. So there's a lot of like drug abuse, and it's very open, but it's not, I thought it was done on purpose, because you want to scare people into the casino. You don't want them to veer off, and everyone's like, okay, if I'm in the casino, I'm only there, the boardwalk, the beach, and then I'm back in.
That's an interesting theory. It's a pretty good one. I hadn't heard that before. I hadn't thought of it.
There's no.
It would be deliberate to keep people inside because that's where they want them, Well,
exactly.
certainly the casinos have been able to exert some other ways. For example, there's literally nowhere to park in Atlantic City that's free. So if I want to go take the bus or the train, there's nowhere for me to park my car or even stop to wait legally and pick somebody up from the bus or the train. It's bizarre, and it's all because the casinos want you to pay to park in them. So we've taken away all our public parking. I find that to be outrageous that the city allows that. To me, like public parking, minimal, like at any bus station where you pay like a few dollars a day, that seems to be a public right to me. That's not something that's negotiable with the businesses in your city. But Atlantic City doesn't see it that way. Its government will always tend, for whatever reason, I won't speculate why, although I have speculations, why they seem to go 100% siding with the casinos. Another example with this would be we have a needle exchange program that happens out of an arm of our Atlantic City AIDS Alliance, which is called the Oasis, right on Tennessee Avenue, one of the hairier parts of the city, that street. And basically the casinos didn't like it there because it was a little close to where they saw positive development happening, and they pushed to get rid of the needle exchange program by demonizing it when we all knew why they wanted to get rid of it. They didn't want to have to look at those people going in and out who were getting counseling for how to live with HIV/AIDS, along with, and much of that is due to drug addiction now. So it sort of, went arm in arm what was happening at the Oasis, the kind of services they were providing for harm reduction, which is proven to be the only positive way to combat drug addiction and the deaths that can happen because of it, which is the worst case scenario. So, in a way, what the city wanted to do, they like to push those people off into sections where they're not bothering them, but they don't seem to be doing anything to actually rectify the situation and the real problems that we have here. Know that I also think it's the case, not because I know it personally, because everybody talks about it being true, that Atlantic City is one of those bus destinations that the various prisons and jails in Atlantic City give their ex-prisoners once paroled tickets to, so they all end up down at the Atlantic City bus terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard it too, but I don't. Do you know if it's really true? Because I have heard it from everybody.
That's a Jeff.
Yeah, including the police, from some police, and that's what made me believe it. And I never drove. I do drive, but I never had a car because I don't like to. And I was a bus commuter all the time, and I would see it. I would see the police come in and wake them up in the morning, all the homeless people that were sleeping in the bus terminal. I saw the aid workers come in every morning and try to get them out to the shelters, and to, all these nonprofits working in the bus terminal, and the people that help those that have just gotten out of incarceration and stuff. I forget what their name is, but they wear red jackets and they come into the bus terminal every day in the morning. That doesn't help. That Atlantic City, if that's true, and then it's a dumping ground, for people who have really problems and have a lot of needs, that we are not equipped to meet here. We don't have the resources. And then they try to get rid of those resources, like those people are going away, and they're not. This is a really easy place to get lost. And it's one of the reasons we have all these casinos. It's just an easy place to get lost, where people won't bother you if you're lost. You can sleep under the boardwalk. There's a ton of little nooks and crannies around the giant buildings of the casinos and the abandoned houses that are all over the city and the train yard. And it's one of the reasons why we have such a problem here with homeless LGBTQ youth. all the homeless youth in the region, if they're running away from home or if they're somehow can't stay where they are, they end up in Atlantic City, and then that leads to problems that we have here. One of the highest human trafficking problems, especially with queer youth, and also drug addiction, the allied related problems of drug addiction, and other sorts of abuse. And frankly, there's abuse of a lot of these queer, young queer kids by older gay men, who either tourists who come down here for what we might call sex tourism, or locals, and so we have quite a bit of problem with that here. And it's all tied up in the same package of not wanting to focus resources and efforts on trying to combat these problems, but instead see them as a big sucking sound on our society and push them aside and not give them any resources. Mm-hmm. So, again, one of the advocacy concerns we have here.
Well, it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing because you see it on a daily basis. Like there is no, like, wow, Atlantic City is amazing. The boardwalk's amazing. There's visual, like just 10 steps away. You're faced with things that are really right in your face, and it doesn't go away. And then the streets are they're not paved. They're like it's like a third world to get in there, and the roads are all jacked up. It's every day I'm like, okay, this house is abandoned now. This house is abandoned now. Or yeah. This house fell down. It's like that kind of thing. I had a story about that the needle exchange. It's real close to the Howard Johnson's, the restaurant, and we went in with Bill Cradle for lunch, and there was a long line, and right beside it, we just kind of, I was like, oh, they're giving away something. I don't know, they're giving away something. So we ate. We must have been in there for an hour and a half, just having a good conversation. And I come out and I said, what is this line? Their line continues, and it was the needle exchange program. And I was like, wow, there's that many people that I can go have like a long lunch, for an hour and a half and come back, and the line is equally as long as it was when I started.
It's a huge problem here.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, again, it's not going to go away because we decide we don't want to have a needle exchange program anymore. It's certainly not going to go away because of that.
The whole thing of, so there's a casino vibe that you want to create commerce, and then you have reality in your face vibe going on. If this is a destination, tourist destination, they both can't exist and be equally as available. I work for the Orioles, and people will not go to the stadium anymore because of the gunshots down by the Inner Harbor. Like they don't mix. Fear kind of always wins out. If you were going to fix the casino, like that whole area, I would not make Atlantic City a county seat. All these county things going on are in that town. I would move it to another town, and then maybe some of those issues would be drawn towards there. Like, wow, couldn't you see that Atlantic City now be in Cape May? Can you imagine those people freaked out about what's going on? But I'm just saying, like, to fix the commerce part of it, you just can't have all that stuff there. Now, the part two is that it has to go somewhere, maybe to Pleasantville, and then it has to be fixed. These people need to have a healthier life, but I don't know. So it's kind of like you're running in place to fix the beauty of what Atlantic City is, when there's so much like human suffering, like right next door to you.
Yeah, again, I'm not privy to the details of all the problems because I'm not in government, and I haven't educated myself that thoroughly about it. But it seems like the problems are pretty I wouldn't say insurmountable, but pretty significant, and it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a concerted will by a lot of people in order to try to fix it. And again, without that will, I don't know that it can happen. It's going to have to take that sort of concerted will. But
Yeah.
answers, I don't know. I mean, I think some of the things you're saying are really good and interesting ideas. And I would love it if there were people that were actually honestly talking about these solutions. I don't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really sitting down at a table and going like, how about this? Like creative solutions to these very complicated problems that we have here in Atlantic City. I would love that. I would love to see that happening. I don't see that happening. And it's because, again, it's because of the nature of our politics, which is so personalized. I mean, we all know everybody who's mayor. They're the guy next door. It's not like somebody important, who gets elected mayor in Atlantic City. It's somebody.
By the way, he is the hottest guy I've ever seen in my whole entire life. I am totally
Really?
editing this out.
Marty?
He is so sexy. I am.
Well, that shows me your taste.
No, perfect. Marty is yum yum. I would vote for him just so I can look at him.
I always say in Atlantic City, you can't get elected unless you have a criminal record.
Yes.
Seems to be true. And then, of course, they're criminals, and we know that, but there are criminals. That's sort of like the attitude about it. It's you'd rather have the criminal than the one you don't.
Yeah. I would always say that there's a clipboard, and just look at your name. Your name will come up soon, and you'll be in charge of the city. It's just a matter of time.
Just a matter of time, yeah. Well, I don't know, but what I do know is that to be elected in the city is a matter of politics, not a matter of policy. So again, I have no idea how to resolve that or fix it, but I do think it's a proper observation.
Yeah, it's a major clash, and I mean, what would the reality would be is to move, take the whole city. It's only 8 miles long, and just redo it. Like, if there's empty buildings, tear them down and put new buildings up. Apartment complexes, like create the city that you desire, make it drivable, livable, and
right.
And the people will come. When it comes to all those issues, unfortunately, you can't have both. You can't have a vacation area with the major problems of America. They just have to be moved somewhere and then dealt with appropriately. I don't understand. Like, there's 45,000 people that live in the city, and then we have a really super high level of unemployment where there are casinos that have jobs available, and there's the conflict right there. Where's the disconnect of people who can't find work that could just actually work, and they wouldn't even have to drive. They just walk right to work. So
right.
That part always got me weirded out. I didn't understand it.
Yeah, I can only assume, casinos, you have to have a casino license, and maybe if you have a police record, which a lot of the people of color, because of racism here and poverty, they might. And so you might not be able to get a casino job. In order to work at the casinos, you do have to be able to get a casino license, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that does, I do know that a lot of people that work at the casinos aren't from Atlantic City, they're from out of town, and maybe that is why maybe those jobs aren't available. Certainly I know that a lot of youth are seriously underemployed. We don't have a lot of jobs available for youth in our city. And that's part of the problem, because it sets them up for, having a negative experience with employment, but also maybe for getting into trouble because they're bored. And I think that's probably somewhere where I would start, if this was my rodeo, I would think about resolving that problem of youth underemployment. I think if you get them starting with feeling success working early, then that might go a long way to making people less likely to be unemployable or out of work or feel unemployable later on.
Idea of no visible tattoos, and then someone would tattoo underneath their eye, and you're like, wait a minute, like that, you just canceled yourself out of 11 places that you could be working at.
Exactly.
Like that.
But I mean, that does happen, and so when we want to know why people are working, we might not need to look much further than that. What are some of the restrictions to employment, that we have in the city, and what can we do about easing those restrictions? But, that takes a willingness, again, on the part of government to want to appeal to that audience that may not vote, and this is always the issue in politics, is that politicians are going to appeal to the people that vote for them, not the ones that don't. And often people who are impoverished or otherwise marginalized, they're not voting. They don't think that their vote matters. And that, then we get to sort of this problem compounding itself, maybe.
It always amazed me that Donald Trump had 3 failed casinos and stiffed multiple people, a lot of businesses, a lot of contractors, kept on filing for bankruptcy and redoing the agreements, and people are very pro Republican and forget all about what he had did to his backyard, Atlantic City.
God. I personally know 4 businesses that Donald Trump didn't pay and put out of business. One of them is a friend I went to school with, his parents or grandparents' business, I'm not sure, they were in glass, and he had hired them to do the contract on building one of his casinos, which for them was like a dream of a lifetime. Like, they were going to be rich, like, this is the biggest contract we've ever gotten. They took out loans, to buy all the glass and stuff, because they're a small mom and pop company, and they did the job. And then Trump said, "Oh, I think you did a crappy job and I'm not paying you." And eventually paid them like 3 cents on a dollar or something ridiculous, and put them out of business because they had so much debt. I know a number of at least 4 personally businesses that he did that to. And those people remember. I find that some of the people that worked in his casino as like cocktail waitresses and stuff, they're the ones that I see supporting him, not who maybe found him charming, or just Republicans who are fiscal conservatives, that have an idea that Democrats are just going to be taxing them too much and spending money. But I think there's a lot of people here that know what Trump did.
Oh, of course, it happened.
Can't stand him,
But
when they imploded the Trump Plaza, a ways back during COVID. I think it was in 2021. I don't remember. And there were thousands of people on the beach having a party for an implosion party when they blew up his casino. I mean, one of he wanted it that way because he doesn't like his casinos that he went bankrupt on sitting there uninhabited with the T falling off of the word Trump, and the decaying and falling apart. It's not a good look for him. So he ordered at one point all the names to be taken off the building so that people didn't, because everybody was taking pictures of it and going, yeah, this is what Trump looks like, the post-Trump apocalypse, There's actually a guy, one of the history professors at Stockton, who does a Donald J. Trump Atlantic City tour, which is absolutely lambasts him, and it's true, but it's hysterical, and he takes you to all like the sites that Trump has destroyed in the city, and it's somewhat tongue in cheek and somewhat not, and it's quite good. I was just saying to somebody that I wanted to take it again this summer, take some friends on it because I found it entertaining, but so it's out there here. It's just that this is traditionally Southern New Jersey, all of it, especially Cape May actually is much worse. We're actually fairly blue here in Atlantic City, right?
Yeah.
I mean, below us, it's much more red, I mean, And that's not really changing very much. And it's funny because, for example, somewhere like Cape May has a pretty big LGBTQ component to it, in terms of full-time residents as well as summer owners, especially Cape May proper for men, and like places like the Villas or West Cape May for women. It's gotten to be quite quite a few LGBTQ members have moved there, reside there. So it's ironic that that's a place that is so red, and it really is. It's a very conservative area, and in particular, Cape May is a very conservative town.
Is it not racism though? I mean, ultimately, it's real, like, kind of in your face between the racial makeup between Democrats and Republicans, and the fact that, I guess in Atlantic City, like, I always looked at the Ducktown Bar or that Atlantic City Bar and Grill. They'd play country music. It was coded language that this is a white only establishment. We're playing country music. No one wants country music, but we don't want you. And right. They make it really ugly for anyone who, like, I have friends who were visiting who are obviously were Black, but they could feel the vibe. And they're like, what is going on here?
I have to tell you, I feel the vibe, and I don't always feel comfortable in those spaces myself. So yeah, I agree with you. And certainly there's a huge racial divide here in Atlantic City, which is a shame because this is, like they used to say in New Orleans when I lived there, this is a chocolate city. We have, very much a large population, majority population of people of color in Atlantic City. So it's, and by the way, that's one thing I will say this, and this is where I thought you were going with this, Tom. I think the other shore towns in this area absolutely see Atlantic City as a place where the Black people are, and see it as in racist terms.
I am going there. I did. It was implied.
Yeah. And I do think that, when people, for example, whenever I say I live in Atlantic City, people go, they sort of go, oh, what's that like? Like they do this little sign. I say, I love it. Where else can I be on a city at the beach, like San Juan, Atlantic City? Like, I couldn't really think of too many places where I could really get like the urban feel, because I'm a city person, and at the same time have the beach, and to me, that's such an asset. You know what I mean? It's like, I really believe that. I love it. Like, I feel like I live in Ventnor, around, near Newport in mid city, right? And, mid beach, they call it here. And so literally, I feel like I'm living in Brooklyn. I don't need a car. I walk a half a block. I've got my grocery store, all the restaurants I want to go to, the coffee shop, get my nails done if I want, which I don't, by the way, but you know what I mean? Like, every little thing I could want is right here. I got a movie theater, I can walk to all of it. And then half a block away, I have the bay with my kayaks, and 2 blocks away, I have the beach. Like, but it really, to me, feels like Brooklyn where I live. And frankly, the demographic is like Brooklyn. I live in a Mexican neighborhood, and, my little bodega, I love them over there. They have the best. There's the only place I buy my avocados because they're always perfect. But, I think that our diversity here, to me, is the strength of this place. I had at one time 6 yoga studios, and I had one in Long Beach Island in Ship Bottom. I had some offshore. I had one in Philly. I had one in Northfield, so a little more of an upscale part of offshore. And I had one in Ventnor here, that was North Beach, so right next to Atlantic City. And it's like my beach studios that I had one in Hamilton too. My beach studios that I had, like the one in LBI, it was so 100% white and rich, and then the one here was just like the opposite. And I always remember thinking, God, and in the wintertime, it was a nightmare there. I thought I could never live in these other shore towns. I would feel like a complete outcast, like I didn't fit in at all. And also, they're dead. the winter, and there are no good restaurants. But
Yeah.
we have great restaurants, and part of that's because of the casinos, and part of that's because we have a full-time residency base here, right? Enough of a full-time residency base here to support that, and we have institutions, that have been here forever. But it's just a more interesting place to be with people, and things to do. And there, it's just like all they've got is the beach, and so I feel like those assets could so be exploited in this city.
Mm-hmm. I have another idea for you.
What?
Yeah, this is
We're going to solve all the problems right now.
Yeah. People who are tourists would love to have like an international row of restaurants, so they can bounce from one place to another, and they could try everything that they've ever wanted to try, and they feel, kind of like they're not too far out of their comfort zone. So it'd be like either like a not like a cafeteria base, but it would just be
international restaurant mall. Like they had the exchange for a little bit, that idea, like shared space where you had like little mini versions of your restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's something that could happen on the walk.
Yeah, perfect.
Because right now half their stores are empty, and they're doing some interesting things. They're giving some of them to nonprofits to set up shop, and at no rent. And I know they put Crops Markets in there. That's a food insecurity nonprofit that's community gardens, and now they have a space to do education and selling of farmers markets inside and stuff. So they are starting to do something, and that's something I could suggest to them. I mean, it's a good idea. Another one.
Sure. I mean, you could get
careers,
I was like, everyone wants to, like, I want to sample pho, not knowing what pho is.
Yeah.
If I was able to get either, like I could do a taste of the world where I can go to each one and sample something from it, like something small, or I could just I could finally taste it and feel very like I'm not like spent a ton of money trying to figure out if I like something or not. But that's where I was like, that to me sounds like a lot of fun, and it's already there. There is the food of the world exists all through that area. It's not like you have to import people to make this happen. It's already there. They're awesome restaurants all over the place.
Well, I mean, Ventnor in particular, but Atlantic City area in general, has one of the most diverse populations of any city in New Jersey. I mean, in terms of the different ethnic groups that are represented here, So we have like a really rich variety of resources for doing something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and then that would be, I like that idea. Like, put that one on your list.
Okay. Then we have to get someone to listen to us.
Yeah. We have 3 minutes left on this one.
All right. We'll see you on the other side again, Tom?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Isn't it romantic? Isn't it a dream that can be heard? Isn't it romantic? Moving shadows bright, the oldest magic word. I hear the breezes play in the trees above, while all the world is saying you were meant for love. Isn't it romantic? Merely to be young on such a night as this. Isn't it romantic? Every note that's sung is like a lover's kiss. Sweet symbols in the moonlight to me. I will fall in love perchance. Isn't it romantic? trees above. While all the world is saying you were meant for love, isn't it romantic? Merely to be young on such a night as this, isn't it romantic? Every note that's sung is like a lover's kiss, sweet symbols in the moonlight. Do you mean I will fall in love by chance? Isn't it romantic?
Episode 8 is complete. Next episode, episode 9, today's Revlon. End of episode. Oof, rough.